World Financial Group offers entrepreneurs from all backgrounds the opportunity to start their own business on a level playing field. Dr. Yana Woodhouse, receiving the WCM Wall Street Pioneer Award by the United Black Wall Street of America, Inc., is one of those entrepreneurs.
I see WFG and TFA as a place where African Americans with an entrepreneurial mindset can flourish. And the bonus, we help families and serve the communities across the country.
To learn more about us, go to worldfinancialgroup.com.
We are the sons and daughters of the soul. We are resilient and forever forward-thinking. We ask for nothing else than the opportunity to live and to create the lives that we were meant to live. We want nothing but an equal chance at options and possibilities. The same possibilities and options to live out our potential as our fellow man. We want to be heard, understood, and expressive in our reality. We are the future. We are the creative. We are here.
Hello, and welcome once again to another fantastic Tuesday where your dressed down CEO, Tyrone Glover, is coming to you live from my hometown of Yonkers, New York. I want to welcome you to the program. I want to thank everybody for making time to either show up now or come back later and view it at your given time frame where you have it free. But these shows are super important. Why are they important? Because they're talking about something that we all need to get in front of, financial literacy. It's talking about something that we need to make sure that we understand how money works. I'm sure you've heard it from Dr. Yana B on Access Wealth Nation. Again, she's the queen. I'm not the king, I'm still a prince, but nevertheless, we doing our thing here on Soul City Network. Soul City Network is on Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and Discovery. Soul City Network is making its footprint, and we are so pleased to be part of Soul City Network and doing the things that we need to be doing for our audience. And our audience is inclusive, but we exclusively talk to our African American diaspora population, because we know what we contribute. We know how we have been neglected. We know there's a lot of things that have been done to us over the course of our history. First and foremost, let me give a huge shout out to Happy Women's Month, to all of our beautiful queens out there doing the things that they have always been doing, which is keeping us safe, keeping us healthy, keeping us on that right mindset. And we know it's your time, women. We know it is your time, and we know that in due time, you're going to receive them blessings. So a huge shout out to all the beautiful, wonderful, talented, experienced beyond recognition women that are out there doing their things. Hold it down for yourselves, because we're going to hold it down for you. But as I was saying, financial literacy can no longer be a backseat issue. It has to move to the front of the bus. There is no getting around that. I'm grateful to announce that here in New York State, the governor has made it mandatory. So in 2027, there's going to be a mandate that every student starts to get financially literate. And I'm loving the fact that they're introducing it. But the problem that I may have is, are they making sure that it's not going to be some cookie cutter stuff delivered by individuals who have absolutely no knowledge? You're looking at somebody who has over 30 plus years in this same field that we're getting ready to introduce to all of the students here in New York State. And I can only stress the fact that it doesn't matter where you come from. If you're in an affluent area, if you're in a middle class situation, if you're in a poor situation, these understandings have to be done in a manner in which it's serving all communities. I'm someone who's versed in all communities, so I'm throwing my resume out there. If there are any school districts, if there are any schools who are looking for a talented, bright, smart, savvy, wise, brilliant African-American male who understands that the academic space, we're about 13 to 18% when you think about our student body. But as far as male teachers, African Americans, we're only 2%. So those numbers have to increase. We don't need to be certified. Read my Substack article that talks about certified and qualified. We need qualified individuals to start teaching subject matters that a certified person absolutely cannot teach. It's just that simple. So I'm calling out every single school, every single school district, every single board of education, wherever that may lie within your city or your municipality, even in your state. I'm reaching out across the country. You want our kids to have what they need, then you're going to have to start seeking out individuals who know exactly what to do. All right. So tonight's show is a continuation from last week's show. If you did pay attention, it was a brilliant show. We had to cut it a bit short because time goes so fast. I love it. I love it. I tell all my students, I tell all my clients, I tell all the people that I'm helping with financial literacy, I'm like a faucet. Once you turn me on, it is on until you turn me off. And I know these hours go super, super fast. So I'm going to do my very best to make sure that we wrap this up in that time. Also, please make sure that you have any questions, concerns, comments. Please put those questions in. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook, and obviously, as I mentioned earlier, Roku TV, Fire TV, Apple TV, Discovery. We're doing it. Question is, are you doing it equally for yourself? Also, please do not hesitate. We offer free workshops here in Yonkers at the Yonkers Public Library starting at 2 o'clock. The lab is open, folks. 2024, 2025 was all about preparation. We knew we were going to get a new person in that White House. We knew we were going to get somebody in there, whether it was going to be the old or the new, but nevertheless, it is what it is. 2026 is execution. We are executing flawlessly for those who want to have the understanding of what financial literacy looks like. And I keep repeating this quote: if you do not make money in your sleep, you do not have stability, you have exposure. Okay? We're breaking it down hard. We're giving it to you straight with no chaser. We are making sure that this next generation does not do what the past 7 generations has done, and generations coming after them as well. We cannot allow for our next generation to be saddled with nothing but debt. It is about appreciation and not depreciation. It is about understanding how money works and benefiting from your ROI, your return on your investment. So I'm investing in everyone. I'm investing in everyone. Please take us up on this offer. We're not selling you anything. This is strictly an offer. And as I always say to the naysayers, to all of those who think they're smarter, brighter, more intelligent, wiser, savvier, join the program. If you think that we're putting out anything that might be untrue or misleading, well, I send you an invitation every single time that I do this show, and that invitation is always going to be open, primarily to all the banks, primarily to financial institutions, primarily to Equifax, TransUnion, Experian. When I started this whole endeavor, it was always about credit. Credit is still going to be a primary piece, but we have now opened up that umbrella, and we have realized that there are a lot more spokes, and we have to be a more inclusive understanding of how we're going to deliver financial literacy. This cannot be a singular issue. It has to be multifaceted. And I'm so grateful to be part of a station that not only is doing it for me with the other broadcasting items and the personalities that we have, but we're also doing it for our public. So public, please take us up on these offers. Do not let another year go by. February was Black History Month. We did what we needed to do, didn't get the response that we needed. March is Women's Month. We're seeing at the library a lot of women turning out, and we are so grateful. Next month is Financial Literacy Month. The library should be jam-packed. These shows should be jam-packed. All right. So with that being said, we're going to jump right into it. First, what we're going to do is we're going to play an article for you. These are articles that I write myself, and they are hitting home runs. They are straight. They are pulling no punches. They are direct. They are hitting hard. So again, if you are upset, mad about what's being demonstrated, or excuse me, what's being put out there, don't get mad. Get you a piece of paper and write some of this stuff down. Start realizing that if you're getting mad over something that's being said, then probably there's some truth and some guilt. Once we have talked about what we need to talk about, we're not going to revisit it. We're going to move forward. Keep thinking that you're going back to take care of what has happened last year, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. That's only slowing down your progress. You need to be focusing on the future. And this is for all of my students, K through 12, not just my students, but all students across this nation, K through 12, higher education. This is for the business community as well, because I say it all the time. If they can mandate sexual harassment, then they can definitely mandate financial literacy. All right, so we're going to go ahead and dive into that article, and that article is Dying on the Clock. Dying on the Clock. This is we are going to have individuals who work until they are dead. If they do not wake up and understand money works for you, you do not work for money. And if you need extra assistance, if you need extra attention, if you need more understanding, I need you to tune in not just to the Tuesday shows, but I also need you to tune into our beautiful, wonderful, smarter than smart, intelligent Queen Dr. Yana B. Woodhouse on Thursdays. I need you to also equally tune into Eridita Anderson, another brilliant educator, smart beyond smart, talented beyond talented. We got some people who know what to do. The question is, do you want that assistance? Well, we're offering it to you. All you have to do is join the conversation. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into this article. And please sit back, take it in, get you a piece of paper, write down some of these quotes, listen to some of these questions, and again, start moving the needle forward.
One, if the median American worker has $955 saved for retirement, not 900. Dying on the Clock, The Retirement Lie, The Class War, and Why 7% Changes Everything. By Real Ones in the Room. The WLTH Lab Installment Series. 3 questions before we begin. 1. If the median American worker has $955 saved for retirement, not $955,000, not $95,000, but $955, and you're not furious, what exactly are you waiting for? 2. If 51% of Americans over 65 plan to work indefinitely because they can't afford to stop, at what point do we stop calling this retirement planning and
My apologies. There we go.
Dying on the Clock, The Retirement Lie, The Class War, and Why 7% Changes Everything. By Real Ones in the Room. The WLTH Lab Installment Series. 3 questions before we begin. 1. If the median...
All right, looks like we're having a couple of technical difficulties here, but we're going to rectify that really quick. My apologies again. Getting some feedback. Let's do this.
An American worker has $955 saved for retirement, not $955,000, not $95,000, but $955. And you're not furious. What exactly are you waiting for? 2. If 51% of Americans over 65 plan to work indefinitely because they can't afford to stop, at what point do we stop calling this retirement planning and start calling it what it is, a death sentence with a paycheck? 3. If $69 trillion sits in the US stock market and the bottom 50% of Americans own just 1% of it, $3,800 per person, while the top 1% holds $9.5 million per person. Who designed this system, and why are we still participating in it on their terms? If you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. Warren Buffett, the man worth $130 billion who said the quiet part out loud. Let's go. Welcome back to the lab. Not the laboratory of theories, not the classroom of maybe. The WELTH lab, where we deal in receipts, data, evidence, and the kind of truth that makes comfortable people uncomfortable and uncomfortable people dangerous. This installment hits different. This one is personal. This one is for the woman working 2 jobs who hasn't taken a vacation in 3 years. This one is for the black father whose grandfather worked the same company for 40 years and retired with nothing but a handshake and a pension that vanished. This one is for the 22-year-old in the Bronx, in Compton, in the South Side, in Appalachia, who was never taught the difference between an asset and a liability. Not because they couldn't learn it, but because the system was designed to make sure they never would. This is for the real ones in the room. And if you're reading this, you're in the room now. The retirement lie, America's longest running con. Let's start with the receipts, because the lab doesn't do opinions without evidence. The National Institute on Retirement Security released a report in February 2026 that should have been front-page news on every newspaper in America. The median retirement savings for all American workers aged 21 to 64 is $955. That is not a typo. That is the number. $955. That won't cover 1 month's rent in any major city in this country. That won't cover a medical emergency. That won't cover a funeral. 1, 2. For workers who do have retirement savings, the median balance is $40,000, against the roughly $1.5 million Americans say they need to retire comfortably. Workers aged 55 to 64, the people closest to the finish line, have accumulated only 19% of their targeted retirement savings. They're running out of runway, and the plane hasn't even taken off. 2. Here's the architecture of the crisis. 56 million private sector workers have zero access to an employer-sponsored retirement plan. Add gig workers and part-timers, and that number surges to 83 million Americans locked out of the basic wealth-building infrastructure. 3. 42% of full-time workers lack access to any retirement plan. 44% don't participate even when they have access. 50.5% receive no employer match. 4. Nearly half of American households, 46%, reported zero retirement savings in the Federal Reserve's survey of consumer finances. 5. 49% of Americans 55 and older have no retirement savings whatsoever. Only 17% have a pension. 6. 2/3 of Americans say retiring between 65 and 70 is unattainable. Not unlikely. Not challenging. Unattainable. 7, 8. And the punchline? 51% of employed Americans 65 and older say they plan to work indefinitely, which is a polished way of saying they will work until they are dead. Among those still working past 65, 48% cite financial necessity as the primary reason. Another 24% expect to work past retirement just to cover basic expenses. 8, 9, 6. The AARP reports that 7% of retirees have already unretired, gone back to work after supposedly being done, with nearly half driven back by financial pressure. 2/3 of older job seekers say finding work is difficult, with age discrimination as the number one barrier. 10. Let me say this plainly. In the richest nation on the face of this planet, in the most prosperous time in our history, the American worker is being told to work until they collapse. That is not retirement. That is indentured servitude with a 401k brochure. The Boston College National Retirement Risk Index estimates that 50% of U.S. households will not be able to maintain their pre-retirement lifestyle even if they work until 65 and annuitize every asset they own. The typical household faces a $400,000 to $500,000 shortfall from what they actually need. 11. And if the next generation doesn't learn what this generation was never taught, if the generation after that follows the same path, we are looking at multiple generations of Americans who will never retire. Not because they chose to work, because the system chose for them. Social Security, the last safety net, faces insolvency by 2033 or 2034, with projected benefit cuts of roughly 20%. For the 44% of Americans who expect Social Security to be their primary income source in retirement, that cut is the difference between eating and not eating. 8, 11. This is the crisis. Now let's talk about how we got here. The presidential autopsy. How every president
second, because I want to talk about some of those issues that were coming up. Again, those numbers that you're hearing, the 8 and 11, those numbers are at the end of this article, and everyone, it's on Substack. If you want it, you want to share it with those of you in your circles, things of that nature, please do. This article is on my Substack, Real Ones in the Room. But again, that beginning piece, that should alarm you. It should scare you. Those numbers are statistics that should alarm every single person. It doesn't matter if you're African American, it doesn't matter if you're Hispanic, it doesn't matter if you're Caucasian, it doesn't matter if you're Asian. It matters if you do not have safety nets. It matters if you do not have an action plan. That's when it's really going to hit you. Did you hear about some of those numbers about seniors who have to go back into the workspace? Number one reason why? Financial instability. And this is going to continue to keep happening in the richest nation on the face of the planet. All right, I'm going to pause it there, but you also have to know what and how did we get here? What's going to be uncovered now is going to be talking about some of the presidents, or at least the presidents since I've been around, from Nixon up until the current. So let's dive back into it.
President since Nixon contributed to the death of the middle class. The middle class didn't die in its sleep. It was murdered in broad daylight, across 5 decades, by policy decisions made in the Oval Office, ratified by Congress, and enforced by a system that rewards the top and punishes the rest. The share of Americans living in middle-class households fell from 61% in 1971 to 50% by 2023, an erosion of 11 percentage points representing tens of millions of families. 12, 13. The middle class's share of total U.S. income dropped from 62% in 1970 to 43% in 2022. Meanwhile, the upper class went from 29% to 48%, surpassing the middle class for the first time in 2009. The top 1% doubled its share of household income from 9% in 1979 to 18% in 2022. 13, 14, 15. Here is the presidential body count. Richard Nixon, 1969 to 1970, for the architect. Nixon ended dollar convertibility to gold on August 15, 1971, fundamentally restructuring the global monetary system. This Nixon shock allowed unconstrained money printing and inaugurated an era of inflation that eroded working-class purchasing power. Before 1971, worker compensation and productivity rose in lockstep. After 1971, they diverged permanently. Nixon also introduced gradualism, monetary restraint that prioritized controlling inflation over employment, and oversaw rising unemployment from 3.3% to 5.5%. His presidency delivered GDP growth of just 2% and inflation of 10.9%. He stacked the National Labor Relations Board with pro-corporate appointees who sided with companies 75% of the time. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Gerald Ford, 1974 to 1977, the placeholder. Ford inherited Nixon's economic wreckage and presided over the second highest unemployment rate at 7.5%. He passed virtually no meaningful health and human service legislation. The middle class treaded water while the wealthy regrew. 18, 22. Jimmy Carter, 1977 to 1981, the unintentional accelerant. Carter achieved the highest GDP growth at 4.6%, but also the highest inflation at 11.8%. His appointed Federal Reserve Chair Paul Volcker raised interest rates and tightened money supply, policies designed to reduce inflation long-term, but which crushed working-class borrowers in the short term. Carter proposed balancing the federal budget rather than investing in a New Deal, to the dismay of progressives. 23. A teen. Ronald Reagan, 1981 to 1989, the executioner. Reagan was the single most destructive force against the American middle class in the 20th century. His presidency launched the trickle-down era. He slashed the top tax rate from 50% to 28%, a reduction of more than 50% for the wealthy, without equivalent cuts for working families. 24. He fired 11,345 striking air traffic controllers in 1981, sending a message to every employer in America that unions could be crushed with impunity. He cut funding for public education from 6% of GDP to 1.9% during his first term. 16. He increased military spending from 4.9% to 27.3% of the budget while slashing social programs. 16. He targeted welfare and Social Security, raising the retirement age to 67. 22. Union membership declined by a fifth under his watch. 16. His presidency saw poverty rates of 13.1%, the highest since Johnson. 18. The income gap between rich and poor widened dramatically during Reagan-Bush years, as millions slid from the middle class into the working poor. Reagan's tax policies concentrated wealth upward, and the percentage of jobs paying wages above the poverty level declined. 22. 24. George H.W. Bush, 1989 to 1993, the inheritance. Bush Sr. continued Reagan's trajectory. His presidency recorded the highest poverty rate at 14.5%, the lowest GDP growth at 0.7%, and unemployment at 7.3%. 18. Bill Clinton, 1993 to 2001, the paradox. Clinton delivered the lowest poverty rate at 11.3% and low unemployment at 4.2%. The economy boomed. But Clinton also signed NAFTA, which accelerated manufacturing job losses. He deregulated Wall Street by signing the repeal of Glass-Steagall in 1999, directly enabling the financial instruments that would crash the economy in 2008. He signed the Telecommunications Act of 1996, concentrating media ownership. The seeds of the next catastrophe were planted in the soil of prosperity. 18. George W. Bush, 2001 to 2009, the collapse. Bush is the only president with negative GDP growth, minus 1.2%, and the highest unemployment at 7.8%. The 2008 financial crisis wiped out $7 trillion in household wealth. His tax cuts overwhelmingly benefited the top brackets. The middle class didn't just shrink, it hemorrhaged. 18. Barack Obama, 2009 to 2017, the recovery that missed the bottom. Obama inherited catastrophe and delivered stabilization. Unemployment fell from 10% to 4.7%. But the recovery disproportionately favored asset owners. The Federal Reserve analysis showed 62% of the recovery was due to stock market gains concentrated among the top 10% who owned 89% of stocks. The poverty rate remained the second highest at 14%. The bottom half of America watched Wall Street recover while their wages stayed flat. 25. 18. Donald Trump, 2017 to 2021, the tax cut mirage. Trump's 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act slashed the corporate rate from 35% to 21% and delivered massive benefits to the wealthiest Americans. Inflation was low at 1.4%, but the poverty rate of 11.9% masked deeper structural inequality. The pandemic exposed the fragility. 40 million Americans filed for unemployment in spring 2020. Stimulus checks provided temporary relief. They did not build wealth. 18. Joe Biden, 2021 to 2025, the inflation squeeze. Biden delivered the second highest GDP growth at 3.2% and the fourth lowest unemployment at 4.8%. But inflation peaked above 9% in 2022 and cumulative price increases of 13.5% during his term devastated purchasing power for working families. Grocery prices rose 18.6%. Energy prices rose 33.9%. His middle-out rhetoric was ambitious, but 51% of the middle class reported his policies provided not at all any benefit. 26, 27, 28, 18. The verdict, from Nixon's dismantling of the gold standard to Reagan's tax massacre to Clinton's deregulation to Bush's crash to the slow-motion recovery that only lifted the top. Every president has, whether through action or inaction, contributed to the near extinction of the middle class.
And I'm going to stop it right there. So again, every president, okay, the verdict from Nixon dismantling the gold standard to Reagan tax massacre to Clinton's deregulations to Bush crash to the slow motion recovery that only lifted the top. Every president had, whether through actions or inactions, contributed to the near extinction of the middle class. So none of them can sit here and say, "Oh, look at what I did, look at what I did, look at what I did." Yes, we're going to blame every single last one. And we get it. Millionaires and billionaires went and lobbied. Lobbyists came and went to Congress, and everybody in Congress, again, 60% of all elected officials in Congress are millionaires. Okay, they are millionaires. And now we're seeing in the current administration that's occupying the White House, some of them are billionaires. Do you really think, ladies and gentlemen, do you really think, boys and girls, students of all ages, that these individuals who are millionaires and billionaires are really working that hard for the poor? Okay, the poor. There's another category right after the poor. That's called the working poor. There's another category directly after the working poor. That's called the working homeless. All right. Then you finally get to that one category where we are all in the middle class and thought we were going to get there at some point, which was called the what? The rich. Now the rich have extra classes equally as well. You know what they call those classes? They call that the wealthy. And they have another category that has now been created, and that's now called the uber wealthy. Come on now, folks. Come on now. Not making this up. Every single item, every single paragraph had numbers associated with it. If you want this article and share it with your people, your circle, by all means, you'll be able to see all of the resources that we researched to make sure that the information that we're putting out there is spot on. And I always say, anybody want to challenge me, please, by all means, open invitation. Open invitation. But this should be really rattling you. It should really make you start thinking, wow, all of what I've been doing, some of it, yes, own up to your mistakes. I've owned up to mine, and now I'm doing everything that I need to do to recover from those past mistakes that I contributed to. But I've already said it. There's no way that we should be carrying around 100% of the blame. I'm going to tell you right now, 10, 15% possibly. But that 90 to 85, that's not you. That's policy. That's what has been done to citizens to keep them in a marginalized state. And it's now overdue time for us to course correct. These numbers do not lie. They tell you the truth. All right, let's dive back into it.
The class system. Say hello to the working poor and the working homeless. America doesn't just have a class system. It has a caste system that refuses to name itself. Here's the reality in 2025 to 2026. Class income range, household, percent of population median net worth key characteristics. The poor below $16,320, single, $33,562, family of 4, 12, 14% $6,030 below federal poverty line, dependent on government assistance, food insecurity, housing instability. The working poor $16,000 to $40,000 15, 18% $14, 000 employed but cannot cover basic needs, often multiple jobs, one emergency from homelessness. Too rich for assistance, too poor to survive. The working homeless variable / unstable 0.2, 0.5%, 771, 000 plus. Near zero or negative employed but unhoused. 40 to 60% of homeless hold jobs. Rent exceeds income. Invisible crisis. Lower middle class $40,000 to $61,000 12. 15% $43. 760 paycheck to paycheck. Minimal savings. Vulnerable to any economic shock. Middle class $61,000 to $183,000 51%. Shrinking. $104,700 to $496,000 owns home, maybe. Some retirement savings, declining purchasing power, eroding rapidly. Upper middle class $117,000 to $200,000 plus 14%, $400,000 to $1 million plus professionals. Meaningful retirement accounts, benefiting from education premium. The rich $200,000 to $500,000 plus 5%, $1 million to $5 million working rich. Income primarily from employment. Upper professionals, business owners. The wealthy / ultra wealthy $500,000 plus / top 1%, 3% $13.6 million plus, 99th percentile, $31 million plus, top 1%. Income from assets, not labor. Money works for them 24/7, dynastic wealth, political influence. Sources: Pew Research Center, Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances, Urban Institute, Census Bureau data. 29, 30, 31, 13. The middle class now holds only 8% of all household wealth, $13.4 trillion out of $168+ trillion. The top 1% holds more than the entire bottom 90% combined. For every $100 in wealth held by white households, black households hold $15. 30, 32. The working homeless, a category that didn't exist in mainstream vocabulary a generation ago, now includes 40 to 60% of people experiencing homelessness who hold jobs. In 2024, 771,480 Americans were homeless on any given night, an 18% increase year over year, the steepest rise in modern history. California alone accounts for nearly 1 in 4 homeless Americans. 33, 34. And the working poor? MIT's living wage calculator shows that a single adult in Los Angeles needs approximately $46,000 per year just for rent, food, and transportation, nearly 3 times the poverty line. 33.
Take another little quick break just to, again, let those numbers sit in, register. Let those numbers marinate a little bit. Think about what we are now telling you. Think about what, again, you're not living beyond your means. Your means have never been met. If you're single, think about single. You lose half of your money in taxes, 48 to 52% gone in taxes. Okay, if you're married, again, you're looking at somewhere between 28, 32. If you have a couple of kids, you're looking at from anywhere from 18 to about 24. But still, a lot of that goes to taxes. And I'm still trying to figure out. I've asked the IRS to audit me. I've said many a times, please audit me because I want to know why someone who doesn't drive on every single road in the United States, someone who doesn't use every single park, who doesn't go to whatever that might look like, where my tax dollar might be going, but why am I paying such a heavy burden? Why am I paying so much in my taxes? And this is that young generation that's now taking on these student loans, this debt that will never almost go away. So we'll saddle our kids with student loan debt, but we won't give them nowhere to live. And let's not even begin to talk about this unaffordability crisis. And it's not even a crisis any longer. It's a catastrophe. And I'm so sick and tired of being sick and tired of having to address the media and all of the talking heads who keep saying it's a crisis. It's not a crisis any longer. It's a catastrophe. And every new person that's now starting to join in the conversation by elections, you best understand something. We know what has been done. The jig is up. We have the receipts, we have the data, we have the facts, we now have the resources that point it out clear as day. So you're either on our side, by our side, or guess what? You are in our way. But we will, as we approach our 250th birthday of the United States of America, I can put it out there. This will not continue in the 251st birthday. Things will start changing. And the reason why they're going to start changing, because our dollar has value. If you think about women, if you think about African Americans, if you think about Hispanics, those three categories alone, that's trillions of dollars that could be redirected in other areas and other important pieces. So if the government can't do it, well, we can do it. If the elected officials who we put into these offices, who get into these offices and then decide to go in a different direction, well, guess what? Accountability will start happening. 2024, as I said, that was preparation. 2025, preparation. 2026 is execution. 2027 and beyond is building. You're either building with us or you're tearing down, and you have no place in that understanding of what we're doing. It's just that simple. All right, let's keep it moving. As I told you, this is going to be hardcore. It's going to hit some places and spaces where people and faces and races where you might feel a little bit uncomfortable.
The racial wealth gap, the receipts. As Black History Month closes and Women's History Month begins, the data is devastating. Black Americans make up 12.4% of the population, but own just 3.4% of the nation's wealth, down from 4.7% in 2017. Between 1989 and 2022, the wealth of the average white household increased 7.2 times more than the average Black household. Stock equity makes up nearly 30% of white wealth, but only 4% of Black wealth. 32, 35, 36, 37. Black American stock ownership has risen to 38% in 2025, up from much lower levels, but still lags white ownership at over 60%. The median Black household wealth is $44,890 versus approximately $285,000 for white households. 38, 32. On the TIAA Institute Fleck Personal Finance Index, African Americans answered an average of 37% of financial literacy questions correctly, versus 55% for white Americans. Only 28% of African Americans answered more than half correctly, compared to 60% of white Americans. 39. For women, women held $18 trillion in investable assets in 2023, representing 34% of assets under management, projected to nearly double to $34 trillion by 2030. But women still earn 81 cents for every dollar men earn. 25% of women report poor or very poor financial health, compared to 18% of men. Nearly twice as many women as men report feeling ashamed about their finances, 12% versus 6%. And 71% of women's assets remain in cash rather than invested. 40, 41, 42. Women who invest perform as well or better than men on a risk-adjusted basis. They trade less frequently, stay disciplined, and let compounding work. But 13% of women report having no sources of financial education at all. 41-40.
Let's make another pause there again. Women, this is American History, Black History Month was last month, February. We made some strides, but we still need more. We still need to do more. Women, this is your month. Listen and hear those numbers loudly, clear. Trillions of dollars. And guess what those trillions of dollars can do? They can be redirected to women's businesses. They can be redirected to youth understandings of making sure financial literacy. We got more women governors than we've ever had. We got more women senators, congresswomen, doing the things. Now, I'm asking you to get in front of these concerns. If we can give billions of dollars to Israel, if we can give billions of dollars to Ukraine, and they, again, not saying that they don't need it, not saying that they don't pay us back. I know as a soldier that we get 90% of our money that we give out into the world. We may give them longer time frames to pay it back, but nevertheless, we get our money back. But still, if we took 10% from the military That would be billions of dollars that we can put into financial literacy schools in other programs that are going to help. These numbers are these numbers because guess what? It is the facts. There's no hyperbole. There's no, oh, he got this from wherever. Nope. As I said, those numbers that pop up as you see, what 13% of women reported having no source of financial education at, where you get 41 and 40. At the end of this article, you can see every bit of the resources that were provided to allow us to put this article together. But I'm telling you, women, your month, next month is Financial Literacy Month. That means the United States of America, we dedicated a month specifically to financial literacy. So we must move this needle, or that gap is going to get larger and larger and larger and larger. We have an individual who occupies the White House who is not giving two hella beans about anyone who's not in that billionaire class. He may be talking to a few millionaires, but he definitely at that State of the Union was talking to his tech bros, his multi-gazillionaires, the uber wealthy. He was making sure that they understood he was going to make them richer and richer and richer while he made the rest of us poorer and poorer and poorer. All right, let's dive back into it.
If you're not making money in your sleep, you don't have stability, you have exposure. Think about that line. It's on the flyer. It's on the wall of the lab. And it's the dividing line between every class in America. The wealthy don't trade hours for dollars. They own assets, stocks, businesses, real estate, intellectual property that generate income whether they're awake or asleep. Warren Buffett said it. The data proves it. Only 20% of Americans earn passive income, and almost entirely via dividends, interest, or rental properties. 43. The S&P 500 reached a market capitalization of $62.3 trillion in January 2026. The total U.S. equity market exceeds $69 trillion. If that wealth were distributed equally, every American would hold approximately $203,000 in stock. Instead, the bottom 50%, 165 million people, share just 1% of it, roughly $3,800 per person. The top 1%, 3.3 million people, holds 49.9%, approximately $9.5 million per person. 44, 45, 46. In 2025, retail investors poured approximately $302 billion into U.S. stocks, representing 20 to 25% of total market activity. There are now roughly 165 million stock traders in the U.S., corresponding to about 62% of the population. But that participation is wildly unequal. 87% of households earning $100,000 plus own stock, compared to just 28% of those earning under $50,000. 47, 48, 49, 38. This is the exposure. Working without ownership, laboring without assets, earning without compounding. It's not stability, it's a treadmill with a cliff at the end.
What we're going to do is we're going to stop the article here. We're going to dive into the PowerPoint presentation. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, please, we have roughly about 13 more minutes, but I hope that this article spoke volumes to everyone who was listening today. For those who might come back and listen at a later time frame, I'm asking you, I'm imploring you to get this article, share it amongst your circles, especially to our women, to our queens, to our talented, bright, savvy, brilliant, wonderful women out there. This is your month, and this is your year to change what we do not like. To all of our students out there, this article is for you. You're either going to break cycles or you're going to continue the same status quo. This is for the African Americans. This is for the poor Caucasians. For some strange reason, I guess you thought when Donald Trump was going to get in that office, you thought just because your skin was fair that he was going to make sure that you had the same benefits that he had. Well, he proved it beyond a reasonable doubt. And I know a lot of people who have buyer's remorse, but I'm not here to point fingers at any administration, at anyone. I'm here to lay down blueprints as they did with Project 2025, which was a playbook. Now it's our time to equally. You have a playbook here. You have a blueprint. You have what you need to be able to course correct. Forget about the past and what you may have done. We know the manipulators. We know the individuals who have colluded. We know the co-conspirators. We know it all. Industry has done what it needed to do to get in a position where it now has beyond incredible reach when it comes to our elected officials. But our elected officials, let me make this clear to you. You work for us, the people, and our numbers will change the trajectory of what's been going on if we decided to consolidate, redirect. We're not necessarily putting out any calls to anyone. This is what we're going to do. Again, if you think about the 1964, if I'm not mistaken, the boycott, bus boycott, that bus boycott wasn't just about people not riding the bus. It was about those dollars that wasn't going into the bus system. That's why things changed. And if we have to go back to that understanding, well, God knows we got trillions of dollars that will move those needles. All right, so we're going to dive into that PowerPoint presentation. That's going to wrap it up for us. But I want to thank you all. If I don't get the chance, because I know I'm blazing through this, but I want to thank everybody prior to. Please, if you have a question or two that you want to drop in, please do not hesitate. Drop that question in there. All right, so we're going to go to where we left off last week. But again, Nixon, the architect, Ford and Carter, the transitions, Reagan, the executor. All right, Clinton. Okay, Clinton did some good things, but still, every single president contributed to the erosion of what? The middle class. It made those rungs on that ladder, it cut them out, making it harder and harder and harder to reach that next level. And not only did it not reach that next level, it created more levels at the bottom, creating larger levels at the top. That uber wealthy level is unbelievable that in this nation, we're going to have one person in this nation, based off of all of I think the Forbes list just came out, but there's going to be a person who's going to be a trillionaire before year's end. You all know who it is. I don't like repeating his name. I don't even like saying his name because what he did with Doge was a complete and utter overreach for somebody who has no elected powers or given any authority other than by someone who, in my opinion, again, unfit to hold the office or the highest office in this land. But again, the votes are in, ladies and gentlemen. It is what it is, but we can change it based off of what we need to do. All right, so we got Bush Jr., the collapse. We got Obama and Biden who came in to try to do what they needed to do to rectify, but unfortunately, even they failed us as well. All right. So again, wealth concentration. Middle class holds 8% of household wealth. Top 1% hold more than the entire bottom 90% combined. For every 100 in white household wealth, blacks hold $15. But yet we contribute almost 2.5 trillion. Our contribution is amazing, but yet where is our ROI? Non-existent. 2024, 771,480 homeless on any given night. That is insane in the richest nation on the face of the planet. California accounts for 1 in 4 homeless Americans. New York and California, 2 coastal cities that have more billionaires and millionaires, but yet we have situations that do not add up. It's mathematics, folks. It's nothing else. Math. Do the math. Black Americans, 12.4% of the population, yet we only hold 3.4% of its wealth. Really? Do I need to keep pointing out the obvious things? Women hold 18.18 trillion investable assets in 2023. projected to double to 34 by 2030. Women earn 81 cents on the dollar for men. 25% report poor, very poor financial health versus 18%. 71% of women assets remain in cash, not invested. Women, come on now. Come on now. These numbers are telling you what you need to do. We need to redirect. And if we must do, let's pull it out completely. Let's put these demands on those who think that we're not smart enough, that we're not bright enough, that we're not intelligent enough. Oh, we're beyond all of that. And we will not get mad. We will not get upset. We will not elect for the upper class to use verbiage that doesn't add up. But we will start strategically moving things in a manner in which it's going to start paying off. Hit them in the pockets just like they hit us in the pockets. Watch things change. All right. So if you're not making money in your sleep, you don't have stability, you have exposure. Only 20% of Americans earn passive income, mostly dividends, investment, interest, and rent. The wealthy don't trade hours, they trade assets. 69 trillion. Okay, that's the market. Who owns it? Total US stock market, 69 trillion, January 2026, if equal 203 per American. The bottom 50%, 1%, that means they take on 3,800. Top 1% own 49.9%. That means each person in that top 1% takes home $9.5 million. Come on now. I tell you, it boggles my brain. All right, so I am an avid trader. This is my strategy. This is what I use. For those of you who run from this, let me tell you, this is what the banks do with your money. Do you think the banks use your money to make sure that you get more money? Okay, we can go all the way back to the Wild Wild West. The banks used our money to make more money, and that process has not changed today. If you think about what you get in your checking account, if you think about what you get in your savings account, if you think about when you borrow something, what the cost of that is, if you think about the new subprime, not new, but it's a market that's been out there, the subprime market. If you think about all of the pay now, buy now, pay later schemes, if you think about all the check cashing places where you're paying thousands of percentages, your pay is on a constant subtraction, never added an addition. If you think about states say you're only worth X, Y, and Z. The federal government still, since 2008, says you're only worth $7.25. Why are we not talking about a fair wage or a living wage, but we're still having a conversation about minimum wage that rises every so often by 2%, which is absolutely laughable. Right? Compound interest, the math, not magic. If we took $200 a month at 10% for 20 years, that's $151,000. $200 a month times 10%, or at 10% for 30 years, $452. All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, I can do this all day. But as you can see, time is always, it comes and it goes. All right, so a 7% solution. What happens when 7% of the people enter into the investor class? Look at the money that is now added to each investor class. All right, African Americans, that would be 51.6 million people. All right, that would be $553 billion in 20 years. Women, $1.82 trillion. Youth of color, if they started tomorrow, instead of wanting a new gaming system, instead of wanting a new console, instead of wanting a new pair of Jordans or whatever that might look like, whatever that want is, and we started putting it into the need, watch how things would change. All right, if I will retire wealthy, there's no getting around it. Not by inheritance, not by luck, but what I know and what I practice. That's the reason why. This is the ceiling. This is the surface. All right. There is no force on earth more powerful than an idea whose time has come. So, ladies and gentlemen, as always, I want to thank you so much for giving me the time. The lab is open. Phase 1. The clock is ticking. Are you in? All right. So you can reach me here at 805-428-9424. Send me a text. You can reach me at Leverage Credit Recovery at gmail.com. Again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, thank you, thank you. Women, amazing, wonderful, brilliant, bright, talented, beautiful, every single last one of you. Make sure you get up every single day and say that to yourself. You're amazing, you're bright, you're talented, you're beautiful, regardless of what anyone may not say to you. I'm giving it to you. Now reinforce it on your own. I want to thank everybody who made the time today. Please, by all means, come back again next week. We're going to dive into even more touchy subject matters. We're going to be stepping on toes, and it's okay. But if we do it now, it's going to save that next generation from watching another $47 trillion disappear. Ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you so much. Have a great remainder of your evening. And as always, be safe, America.
We are the sons and daughters of the soul. We are resilient and forever forward-thinking. We ask for nothing else than the opportunity to live and to create the lives that we were meant to live. We want nothing but an equal chance at options and possibilities. The same possibilities and options to live out our potential as our fellow man. We want to be heard, understood, and expressive in our reality. We are the future. We are the creative. We are here.